Keel wanted to know more. He wanted to know where in the brain these different patterns were originating from. These results were sparking bigger questions that were just unanswered by the EEG results. On the one hand, the psychopath's difficulty with abstract terms could reflect emotional deficits, plus a language processing deficit. So it could actually be rooted in malfunctioning abstract language processing brain areas. On the other hand, it could be more constrained and not involve basic language processing brain areas. It could involve primarily emotional deficits and emotional aversion to those concepts. And that would be more in alignment with Hancock's suggestion earlier that inability to understand higher level needs was actually related to a narcissistic attitude rather than some kind of abstract language processing deficit. So Keel wants to know what is going on in the limbic areas responsible for emotion processing. Would we find underfunctioning limbic areas that could be responsible for this effect? And there were clues in other work. So other work by Keel and Adrian Rain, for example, examined neural differences between psychopaths and non-psychopaths using scanning techniques like fMRI to reveal the brain structure or blood flow through the brain as an indicator of neural activity instead of on the scalp with EEG. This work showed that areas of the brain that are known to be recruited during the processing of emotion were more likely to be lesioned or to show a dysfunction relative to people low in psychopathy. For example, Keel's paralimbic system dysfunction hypothesis, it pinpoints several emotion regulation areas that show dysfunction in psychopaths, like including amygdala dysfunction. Adrian Rain, likewise, he's a neuroscientist of antisocial behavior and criminality, and he's identified biomarkers of psychopathy that point to emotion deficits, like low amygdala volume and reduced heart rate. So, for Keel's investigation, locating the source of the abstract processing deficit, this wasn't possible with EEG because that's optimized to measure time course of neural activity to the millisecond. But it's not optimal as far as spatial accuracy. So it can't pinpoint particular areas deep in the brain where activities are sourced. So they used fMRI, or functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is a giant magnet that creates a strong magnetic field and radio waves. And these are calibrated by physicists to capture detailed images of the brain while a person is in the fMRI scanning tube. People can undergo traditional psychological experiments while getting scanned and various tasks, while all of this metabolic activity in their brains, or the blood flow of the neurons, is recorded. And this blood flow is taken as an indicator of activity in those brain areas during the task. So once again, they ran the lexical decision task that we just covered, but this time in the fMRI scanner, as opposed to using EEG. So psychopaths and non-psychopaths were asked to identify a word or non-word in conditions involving concrete and abstract words. And now, in the fMRI scanner, what did Keel find? Keel and colleagues found that Brodmann area 38, the right anterior temporal pole, was implicated. And this is an area of the brain known to be involved in abstract thought. So this area was downregulated in psychopaths relative to their non-psychopath counterparts when they processed abstract terms. So he found a specific deficit in a region that seemed to be responsible for abstract term processing deficit during the task. This suggests that more broadly than their known emotional difficulties, psychopaths were managing an organically rooted difficulty with abstract processing. An abstract processing difficulty in psychopathy has many implications, but one that Keel notes is this. If psychopaths were going to benefit from treatment, the neuroscience data were telling us that treatment must be presented in simple, concrete terms. And this is a really practical implication.